Coming up on today's show, we're going to be breaking down the latest mock draft from ESPN. It was a 2-round mock draft. So we're going to be diving into who they had the Vikings selecting at number 11 and number 42nd overall. My name is Patrick Siepman, and welcome into today's show. Vikings, they could go any which direction, I feel like, at 11. So stay tuned to see who ESPN had them drafting. But if you guys want the Vikings to draft a quarterback, and this is kind of the camp I've been starting to fall into. You know, early on in the offseason, I was like, you know what, Vikings, bring back Kirk. If a quarterback you want is there at 11, you can take him, but it's not that big of a deal. Now I'm kind of in the camp, we need to draft a quarterback. So if you guys agree with me, just drop a like on today's video. Let's see if we can get it 300 likes. Would really appreciate it if you guys could show some support. Hit that thumbs up icon. And let's see who Matt Miller had the Vikings drafting at 11. It was Dallas Turner, the edge out of Alabama. And you see him right there, man. This dude's a stud. He is an athletic freak, and I'm a big, big fan of Dallas Turner. You know, I think the Vikings, I think they have 3 choices at 11. I think it's either quarterback, edge, or cornerback. That's it. I don't think, you know, obviously this class is great with offensive tackles, and it's great with wide receivers. Vikings, you know, wide receiver, don't need it. Offensive tackle, don't need it. You start falling to these edge rushers, and Dallas Turner was the pick for Matt Miller. This is what he had to say. He said, the Vikings are at a crossroads with quarterback Kirk Cousins hitting free agency at 36 years old and coming off an Achilles tear suffered in Week 8. Could they pull the trigger on Michigan's J.J. McCarthy, Oregon's Bo Nix, or Washington's Michael Penix Jr.? Yes, but they are needs across the board. Danielle Hunter is a free agent, and Turner would perfectly fit defensive coordinator Brian Flores' defensive wish list at edge rusher. Turner had 10 sacks in his breakout 2023 season, and one NFC area scout thinks his ceiling is higher than his former college teammate, Will Anderson, who went number 3 in last year's draft. Turner has excellent speed in space with a Pro Bowl player comparison to Jaguars' Josh Allen. He's my top-ranked defender in the class and would be a steal this late in the night. And I agree with him, and I'll get more thoughts on Dallas Turner here in a second. But quickly, I do want to tell you guys about Prize Picks. If you guys do head to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use that promo code CLNS, you guys will get a first deposit match all the way up to $100. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. All you got to do, pick 2 or more players, choose more or less on some projected stat types, and you guys can start seeing the cash roll in today. Any boring game, whether it's the NBA, college basketball, whatever it may be, PrizePicks adds a little more juice to it. So get hooked up today, prizepicks.com/CLNS, and use that promo code CLNS for a first deposit match all the way up to $100. Get hooked up today. Link for that in the comments and description of today's show. All right, let's break down Dallas Turner as a player. I thought the coolest part about that quote from Matt Miller was that he said that he might have more defensive upside than his counterpart last season, Will Anderson, which is cool because I am all down with the Vikings, you know, with the tutelage they have already instilled with Brian Flores, with them taking a risk on a more boom or bust guy in this year's class, because I would trust in Brian Flores way more than obviously Ed Donatel to get the most out of this guy. And, you know, this guy's an athletic freak. And, you know, anytime I turned on Bama this season, I was always had my eyes peeled out for Dallas Turner. Also think he's got a great name for an edge rusher. Can't you just imagine that, Turner 15 for the Vikings coming off the edge? I think it would make a lot of sense. And it also gets me this, man. The Vikings, they just need more talent on the defensive side of the football. Like, I mean, I think the Vikings, you could have made the argument last season, they had the least amount of talent on defense in the entire National Football League, especially outside of Danielle Hunter. Like, the secondary was terrible. You know, I love what Ivan Pace did, but besides him at linebacker, like, you really had not much to work with. And the fact that your best linebacker and a top 3 defender on your team, and this is no disrespect to Ivan Pace, like, he's one of my favorite players on the Vikings, but the fact that he was a UDFA rookie and he was a top 3 defensive player, I don't know. Just overall, the Vikings need more talent, and drafting a guy like Dallas Turner would definitely answer a big-time need, especially if they do lose, Hunter in free agency. But hey, if it's not quarterback, I think the Vikings got 2 choices. I think it's cornerback or edge rusher. What position should the Vikings draft out of those 2? Let me know your thoughts down below. CB for cornerback, or give me edge for edge rusher. Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. But at pick number 42, Vikings got a quarterback, and it's Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback out of Washington. As he's a controversial quarterback. I think he's tough to evaluate. Kind of getting that here more in a second. But Michael Penix, man, I'll tell you what, that college football semifinal versus Texas, he absolutely lit it up, and he was fantastic. And I think that's a big reason why he'll probably go top 50 in this year's draft class. But this is what Matt Miller had to say on the Vikings drafting Michael Penix. He says Penix's draft stock varies depending on whom you ask. But the most consistent answer I've heard is the second round. Given the 4 season-ending injuries he suffered at Indiana, 2 knee surgeries, 2 shoulder injuries, Penix has excellent arm strength and velocity and is a pure passer. He's a first-rounder. He threw for nearly 5,000 yards in 2023 and helped lead Washington to the national title game, but those injury and durability questions push him to the Vikings. It's great news for Minnesota, where Kirk Cousins is set to become a 35-year-old free agent coming off an Achilles injury. Penix can be the quarterback in waiting if Cousins is re-signed or the immediate starter if not. And listen, I actually do agree with what Matt Miller said right there. I think Penix is a guy, just because of how, his age and, how much experience he does really have playing football, like he could be an immediate starter on this football team. And listen, I mean, the stats from this past year are ridiculous. I mean, 65.4% completion percentage, almost 5,000 yards, 36 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He's got a big-time arm, and I'll tell you what, after that game versus Texas, watching him, I was like, oh my God, I'd take him at number 11, no doubt. And I was kind of living, prisoner of the moment. But then he had the game against Michigan where, he went up against a, no disrespect to Texas, but he ran up against a real, true high caliber defense, and he struggled. And that's why he's tough to evaluate because, he's got all the talent in the world. There's no doubt about it. But he's had 4 season-ending injuries, and, he is 2.5 years older than a guy like J.J. McCarthy. And, if your argument, for Penix over McCarthy is like, oh, McCarthy doesn't have the, the same arm talent that Penix does. He's just not, as developed as a quarterback. Like, could you imagine J.J. McCarthy playing in college 2.5 years from now? How good he would be. Like, the dude went 20 or 30-1 as a starter. Like, that's why if I had to choose one, Penix or McCarthy, I frankly don't really think it's that close between the two. But he's got unreal talent. Kind of tough to evaluate. But, again, I would take him at 42nd overall, no doubt. Vikings need to start this over, and I even think a guy like Penix would be a great option. But I'll ask you guys. This is a tough question to answer right now. Who will be QB1 for the Vikings next season? Let me know down below. If I still had to call it right now, still probably going Kirk Cousins, but maybe it's a guy like JJ. But let me know your thoughts down below. Who will be QB1 for the Vikes next season? And as always, guys, thank you guys so much for watching today's show. Again, going to ask you guys to hit that subscribe button, lock us in as your go-to YouTube channel. Just thank you guys so much for tuning in. Ton of fun doing these, and really, really do appreciate it. So shout out to all you guys for watching today's show. But hit that sub button if you haven't already. Skol Vikes.